where did I know that voice from? She's Tommy Pickles from the Nicktoons Rugrats. Did you guys know that? And she's also Buttercup in the Powerpuff Girls.
I have no fucking clue what any of that is.
You don't know?
I have a child, and I've never watched either of them.
Rugrats?
No.
Never.
Tommy Pickles? The Powerpuff Girls?
No.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down to Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we love when growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes to this podcast for you, I'm one of your three co-hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene, how to pick up trashy women lions.
What's a little boy like you doing with big boy smut like this?
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week the audience selects from 6 movie choices that we then break out our race car VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tally the highest number of votes. At the end of the podcast, the three of us will provide you, the audience, with a number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. Westworld, just as a reminder, coming back March 15th. It's right around the corner. It's almost less than 30 days.
33 days. Yep.
It's 33 days away. Yeah. So anyway, you can check out all the past episodes and get ready for Westworld season 3 at shatontv.com. That being said, Big D, it's Tuesday night. Gene, you just got back from New Orleans. I'm still here in Florida where it's hot and it's humid and muggy and disgusting. But we are continuing on with the spring commissions that we've been receiving here at shatthemovies.com.
Yes, Roger. Tonight is a glorious day in the history of Shat the Movies. This was a commission. We get them and they come in. Somebody says, would you do this movie? Some of them you're like, okay, this would be good. When this one came in, my eyes lit up. I sat up a little straighter. I was super happy. When one of our listeners from Ithaca, New York, John Enright, said, you guys have to do the 1985 comedic breakup classic, Better Off Dead.
And anytime someone commissions a movie, we always ask when you send in dollars to also send us an email explaining why you gave money here to the podcast. And Gene, you always do the honors of reading that said email.
That's right, Raj. John wrote in from Ithaca and said, hey guys, thank you for accepting my money and agreeing to review Better Off Dead. I've been considering commissioning a movie for a while, but I wasn't sure which one to pick. After hearing the group's natural transition into affection for Better Off Dead at the end of the Army of Darkness podcast, I figured that was my cue. I actually had a Twitter interaction with Gene and Carrie about a year ago, I'm sure you totally remember, asking for a Best of John Cusack category, and it looks like I'm finally getting my wish. Before ever seeing Better Off Dead, I vividly remember my dad and his friends demanding $2 cash from each other constantly. I was born in 86, so I obviously didn't get the reference at the time, but at some point in the late 90s, I stumbled upon a copy of the movie in my dad's VHS collection. I watched it once, saw the scene with the paperboy demanding payment, and immediately felt a connection. I bought my own DVD copy a few years later and have carried it with me ever since. I've moved around quite a bit in the last 10 years because of graduate school and work, so that DVD has traveled with me all over the country. It started with me in my hometown in the Philadelphia suburbs before moving on to Morgantown, West Virginia, Bowling Green, Ohio, and now Ithaca, New York. After living in Ithaca for a few months, I started dating my now wife, Michelle, in early 2014. And when I started to get the feeling she might be the one, I immediately went for the Better Off Dead DVD. As soon as Ricky's mom exploded and Michelle burst into laughter, I knew she was the one for me. Romantic, right? From someone who's been listening to your entire catalog of content since accidentally stumbling onto your first Game of Thrones podcast, thank you for all the time and effort you put in. I've really enjoyed everything you've done as a group the last couple of years, and I can't wait to see how the show will progress moving forward. Your connection as friends seems genuine and reminds me of how I interact with my buddies back home. In my humble opinion, I think that's the true strength of the show. So again, thank you to Gene, Dick, Roger, Carrie, and King B. Keep up the great work, and I can't wait to listen to the review. That comes from John Enright in Ithaca, New York.
Better Off Dead is a 1985 American teen black comedy film starring John Cusack and written and directed by Savage Steve Holland. It tells the story of high school student Lane Meyer, who is suicidal after his girlfriend breaks up with him shortly before Christmas. The film was not a commercial or critical success at the time of its release, and with a limited release in August 1985 and a wider release in October, Better Off Dead grossed less than $10.3 million at the box office. Critics, again, weren't too kind either. Janet Maslin of the New York Times wrote, "The film doesn't seem to have much focus, but it doesn't seem to want one either." And Siskel and Ebert gave the movie 2 thumbs down, with Roger Ebert saying, "Maybe the raw ingredients are there in this movie for a funny black comedy about suburbia, but Better Off Dead never, ever finds the right note." And even though Better Off Dead never cracked the top 5 upon its release, it was considered a disappointment. It years later found a strong following via cable and home video. Video stores found that they had to keep repurchasing the movie because people weren't bringing it back. Before we dive into the movie review and break down our thoughts, we always ask the question, what are your memories of Better Off Dead? Maybe the first time. When was it that you watched Better Off Dead? We'll start with you, Big D.
So when this came out, I was 12 years old. And right around that time, I was actually had a paper route with my sister. We didn't do it on the bicycle. We would pull a cart around. So I could sympathize with Johnny's attempt to collect the $2 from the subscribers because it was a pain in the ass. People would fucking, I left it in an envelope. Bullshit, you never did. So I don't know if I had a connection with the movie, but I've loved it ever since I can remember. It's infinitely quotable. And watching it was like a nice warm blanket on a cold winter night. It just felt like home, like a real comfortable worn-in pair of jeans. And it just left me feeling happy and just so glad that I got to see it.
How about you, Gene? Had you ever seen Better Off Dead before we had to review it?
Oh, yeah. I didn't see it like Big D did back in 85. It was kind of a late discovery for me. I fell in love with John Cusack after seeing Grosse Pointe Blank back in 97. So this is like late in high school for me. And so that summer I started binging on John Cusack movies after seeing Grosse Pointe Blank. So first it was Say Anything that I adored. And then Better Off Dead I was addicted to. And I must have owned it on DVD at some point because I remember watching it a ton of times. And now it's like virtually impossible to find streaming. So I think I did all my Better Off Dead watching between like 1997 and I don't know, maybe 2000 or something like that. But it'd been a couple of years since I'd seen it.
Yeah, you mentioned Say Anything. I always get these two movies mixed up because mostly John Cusack plays virtually the same character in every movie he does. I too, though, have always been a big fan of John Cusack and even his sister Joan. But my aunt, who's like my big sister, introduced me to John Cusack movies early on. And whilst I was too young to see it in the theaters, I did watch it on HBO with her a lot. And I did go through a really bad breakup, which we'll get into in college. And I rented every bad breakup movie or every movie that a guy goes through a bad breakup in. And this was on that list as I sat in my depression and pondered ways to kill myself. So yeah, so this was more of like a documentary than anything else.
I can't wait to hear about it.
With that being said, Big D, play the trailer.
Does it ever feel like everyone's got more going than you do? Oops. That everyone is smart.
So you're Al Myers' kid?
Yes, I am.
You look pretty stupid to me.
Thank you.
You say the best skier in town just ran off with your girlfriend? Even your younger brother does better than you do? And that nobody even cares?
Beth broke up with me.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, you might be right. But remember one thing.
I haven't even been to New York City.
Nobody was ever better off dead.
The truth is, I could outski you any day of the week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you want a race? I'll take you on any day, sucker.
Go that way, really fast. If something gets in your way, turn.
Whoa!
All you need is guts.
All right! Now turn!
I'm gonna race, I'm gonna lose, and I'm gonna die in that order.
Go!
And you'll never doubt yourself again.
He's skiing on one ski!
Better off dead.
That's a real shame when folks be throwing away a perfectly good white boy like that.
An abnormal look at a normal teenager.
High school student Lane Meyer's two main interests are skiing and his girlfriend Beth. Shortly before Christmas, Beth dumps Lane for the handsome and popular captain of the ski team, Roy Stalin, an arrogant bully who unfairly rejects Lane at the ski team tryouts. Beth also criticizes Lane's car, an old station wagon, although Lane also owns a 1967 Camaro he has not been able to get running, and it sits on the driveway in a dilapidated state.
Raj, I know you love a cartoon.
I love it.
This movie started off with the animated opening sequence, and I was like, oh shit, I forgot about this. And like, to anybody who has their doubts at this point in the movie, I don't blame you, because it's like Savage Steve, and it's like a cartoon. You're like, this, shut it the fuck off. No, it gets better. Better Off Dead is undoubtedly fun, and it's funny, and it does hold up. But as the movie opened, you're like, oh no, like all these jokes are super predictable. Like, oh, it's the mom and she can't cook, and like, Dad's life is falling apart and he's goofy, and Lane's a loser. Like, he takes a shower with his socks on. And I feel like we've seen all these gags before in 80s movies. And so I was like, shit, am I going to have to give a bad score to Better Off Dead? And thankfully the movie made up for it with some really clever little touches.
Yeah, I completely forgot the animation. It looked like the animation from the 80s hit game show Press Your Luck. That's kind of like the animation style it kind of looked like. I was like, why is what do they call the little characters? Why are the
whammies?
Why are the whammies stealing the girl? And there's a white knight. I don't know. But it's no wonder that Beth dumps Lane, because in his room, he's got black and white pictures of her like a stalker would outside of an elementary school, just plastered all over his walls. And then he pulls up under the pillow. He's got like a framed photo of her. Like, have you ever been this obsessed that you've put pictures of your girlfriend around the room or a house?
No, but that's the part that saves the movie, Raj. Like, it's lame jokes and stuff, but you get that closet full of Beth, or like Badger's like houseware that always got like those leopard robes, and just lame jokes repeated ad nauseum until you start laughing about it. The photo under the pillow, those are little touches. It's like, they're not Easter eggs. I don't even know what the word is. It's just details. It's details that they put in the movie that make it so enjoyable.
And I think the movie isn't just one thing. It changes tone and style multiple times. Like you said, you start off with the cartoon. Then we see the traditional family shot. We get to meet the mom, the father, Badger. Then they cut to the dad laying in bed, and he hears, what time is it? And you hear the bicycle spokes.
Ugh.
It turns into Jaws. The way they shoot it from down low with the tires, you don't see it. You're building up anticipation. And then the dad comes running out. You see it's the kid on the bike, and the paper is flying through the air. It is shot like a good horror movie. And then immediately it goes right back to being a comedy. So I think it does a lot of things well.
No, I was really questioning whether or not maybe it's just because of the mood that I was in when I watched it. I was really stressed out, or if it doesn't hold up. I think some of these jokes are kind of dated. I think I don't get why he wears the socks in the shower. Can someone explain that to me?
Because he's an idiot.
Oh, because he's an idiot? Is his mind too much on Beth?
He wasn't thinking straight. The whole joke is that when he gets out and then he's drying the socks. That's the joke. You didn't do stupid shit when you were a kid? No. I used to play video games on the third floor. My room was in the attic, and I was too lazy to come downstairs, so I would pee in soda cans and throw them into the neighbor's yard.
Oh my God, you had piss jugs?
Yes. Why the hell did I do that? I don't know.
Gross.
So Lane goes into the shower with socks. That's not going to ruin the movie.
Hold on. Growing up, your parents put you in the attic.
Yeah.
And then you were too lazy as a child while you were playing your video games to actually go down to the bathroom. So you peed in empty soda cans and then dumped them out your attic window. Would your mom bring you up chicken tenders and refill your Mountain Dew for you as well?
No, Big D was like a reverse sloth up there. They just chained him to a chair. He had to pee in cans and throw him out the window.
No, it was the third floor. So if you had to go downstairs every time you had to pee, it was an endeavor. And I didn't pour it out on the roof because it would have smelled. I would just throw them over the bushes into the neighbor's yard.
Yeah, you had a system.
Yeah, the system. It worked.
Yeah, I definitely did this though once, guys. I'm almost ashamed to say. So my high school girlfriend, Melissa Zaitchek, rest in peace. I don't know if she's still alive or not. She really broke my heart. She's the one who set forth this person that you see here today that's deathly afraid of commitment and getting close to anyone, because she shattered my heart and made me so numb to the world around me. And she cheated on me with another costume character at Walt Disney World, and it really affected me. I remember having to go to like therapy, but it wasn't like good therapy. It was like students of psychology at the University of Florida that were like dating their hours. But one of the things that I did to remind me of her and live in this deep, dark black hole was I printed out photos. I went to CVS and I printed out photos of her and I put it all over my college apartment. And my roommate was like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah, but it makes sense for, I don't know, a college student to be like this. But in high school, they were dating for 6 months. That's an eternity in high school. And every breakup seems like it's the end of the world. If you get broken up with or somebody dumps you, it's devastating. Any normal teenager, they might think, "Oh, this is it. I'm never going to fall in love again. I'm never going to be with anybody again. I'm going to kill myself." Or they're going to like spiral into a depression. That's normal. And I remember doing it, overreacting. I didn't do it in college. I think that's maybe therapy was a good idea. But what's funny is when he gets in the car and he's feeling down, he's like, "I can't get any worse than this." And he turns on the radio. And there's breaking up is hard to do. All the different songs about breaking up to the point where he takes the radio and throws it out the window. All this stuff that we now realize is so stupid and meaningless and that life will go on. In high school, it is the end of the world.
No, I still feel this today. Maybe it's just because I don't take breakups very good. I don't know. Like, have you guys never had a bad breakup? Gene, you're looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, I've had horrible breakups. I'm looking at you crazy, like you're crazy for two reasons. One, you say that you're a commitment phobia, you're a serial monogamist, but also the fact is that I've had bad breakups. They happened when I was like a kid. I think the worst one for me was when I realized in almost every one of these scenarios that I was the reason for the breakup.
Right.
That's the hard pill to swallow, right? Is like, the one that devastated me the most, my very good friend Seth, as I was kind of wallowing in my self-pity, this was in college, he's like, "Yeah, man, sometimes when you dump somebody 4 times, she leaves." And I was like, "Yeah, fuck, you're right. I'm an asshole. It's all my fault."
No, as a high school student, I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't date much. It took me a while to blossom into this confident man you see before you today. So I never had to suffer a breakup at that point. It happened in college, but in college, you get over it pretty quick. It's whatever, you move on. But at this age, you can see why Lane would spiral out of control. I don't know, I'd kill myself, but I can see it.
You guys have never really been broken up with then. You've never had your heart broken.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, but you let it control you and define you. We don't.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
You're still pining after a girl who cheated on you with another furry, and you're still now thinking about it, and it stopped you from falling in love now. Fucking no, okay, listen, I'm going to give you some lines from The Bachelor.
Okay.
Roger, let down your walls.
No.
Open
never.
up.
Never.
Trust.
Never.
Yeah, that's why. So it's not her fault. It's you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If we're done sharing here and get back to the movie, I want to talk about a movie that we just did, Drop Dead Fred, and how that's a bad movie and Better Off Dead is a good movie. And it comes down to casting. Drop Dead Fred had like the second string person for every role. Here in Better Off Dead, they prove that you don't need a well-paid cast or even a famous cast to get perfect casting. They basically took a bunch of 80s like music video extras and they got some people who could basically deliver like 1 or 2 lines and they're like, boom, we got a movie. John Cusack just needed a little bit of support. He is, to me, the ultimate 80s teen star. Let him do his thing. And they just put a couple people around him who were very good at one specific thing. The guy that's playing a Roy Stalin, Aaron Dozier, he's like done this in like one other movie, but he's perfect for, if you said, imagine an 80s prep bully who's captain of the ski team, the hair, the way he like talks through his teeth, being an absolute douchebag, delivering that line, Buenos Dias, like it's just perfect. Or Scooter Stevens, the kid that plays his little brother, Badger. You don't need him to do much. Just look kind of smarmy and slimy, but still be a little kid. The guy, speaking of slimy, the guy who plays the mailman with like the
he's fantastic.
The headphones, Taylor Negron. He grows up later to be the bad guy in The Last Boy Scout. Creepy as fuck. He delivers like one line, and it's enough to make the movie. And I think my favorite, little cameo is Elizabeth Daly, who's Dottie in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. She shows up at the dance. She's doing her hit song, One Way Love, better off dead than living without you. And Raj, I know you hate a song that tells you what's going on in the movie. This one's good. It's not bad.
Well, I think it's good because Elizabeth Daly is also a voice artist. And I was like, where did I know that voice from? She's Tommy Pickles from the Nicktoons Rugrats. Did you guys know that? And she's also Buttercup in the Powerpuff Girls.
I have no fucking clue what any of that is.
You don't know?
I have a child, and I've never watched either.
Rugrats?
No.
Never.
Tommy Pickles?
No.
The Powerpuff Girls on Cartoon Network?
I remember at raves, sometimes women had Powerpuff Girls t-shirts on. That's about all I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Gene, you talk about the cast, and the cast, I think, is dynamite. The movie is made by all these little supporting characters that come in and out of the movie. Whether it's Rocco, who runs the burger place, Porky, or the mailman, or the teacher, all these little characters that come in build and give flavor to this world. And it's something that you haven't always seen. But one thing they do that every damn 80s movies and 90s did was they keep getting these old-ass actors. Curtis Armstrong, he's famously known as Booger in Revenge of the Nerds. He was 30 years old when this movie was filmed.
Mm-hmm.
And to be completely fair, at some point in the movie, Charles says, I've been going to this high school for 7.5 years. So maybe they were trying to cover up his age. But Roy looks like he's a 35-year-old captain of the high school ski team. I just don't get it. It's funny, but why do they refuse to cast teenagers?
I think in a lot of 80s movies, it was just the norm in Hollywood to just get tenured actors, people who had a little bit of experience to play these roles. But in this case, I think this is done with intent. I think Roy is supposed to be hyper developed, right? He's supposed to be like a grown up compared to John Cusack looking like a kid. Because I think John Cusack was about 19 when they filmed this. And then, like you said, for Charles DeMar, Lane's buddy, I think he's supposed to look really fucking rough. This is a guy that's snorting Jello. He's doing Ready Whip because he can't find fucking drugs in town. Dude's snorting snow. Like, I think he's just had a rough run, man.
Yeah. Also, when you put on the Abe Lincoln top hat, it adds 10 years.
Bite your tongue.
Lane lives with his ditzy mother, Jenny, his genius brother, Badger, and his lawyer father, Al, who tries to stop the menacing paperboy, Johnny, from damaging his garage with thrown newspapers. Johnny persistently hounds Lane, yelling, I want my $2. Lane also regularly encounters 2 Korean drag racers who speak in Japanese. One of them learned why are they Korean who speak in Japanese? That doesn't make any sense.
I'll explain it to you.
Aha. One of whom learned to speak English by listening to Howard Cosell.
So when we get to meet the family, maybe it's because I'm a father, I'm drawn immediately to the dad. And dads in all 80s movies, they all seem to be just broken down shells of their prior selves. Lane's father, Al, he gets no respect. Badger is 9 years old. He doesn't even answer his father. When his father's saying, hey, don't cut the coupons out. What are you doing? Badger just gives him this look of disgust. He doesn't even give a shit. He doesn't pretend to even care. His wife is boiling the bacon. This poor guy, he's the one who should be thinking about suicide, not Lane. I feel so bad. Why was every dad in the 80s this, I don't want to say a pussy, but this broken, beaten man?
Yeah, it's almost as if his inner Sandy has left him.
Yeah.
Look closer, Big D. This is your future. This is who you are.
I'm not, no, bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know, Big D. You already are starting to like get phrases wrong when you're trying to use the hip lingo. Just not stringing those words together quite right. I think Emma's going to have you reading out of a book being like, I know what goes down on Orlando.
Okay, boomer.
Well, I don't know. So this movie is chock full of like 80-isms that kids today may not fully get the references, like the Paperboy. But I think a deeper cut than that is the cereal box mail-ins. Like, did you guys ever participate?
Oh, yes.
In the cereal box product prize packs?
Yes.
And did you ever receive anything? Because anytime I did it, I mailed it in. I never got anything.
Okay, pre-Amazon, if you sent away for something, it would come back in like 6 weeks, 8 weeks. I remember it was such a memorable moment. I was a G.I. Joe collector. If you got the points on the back of the G.I. Joes, you sent them in, you could get the first Cobra Commander or Sergeant Slaughter. I remember the day I got home and there was that little box sitting on the counter. It was one of the greatest days.
Yeah, I used to do this too. I got a Dick Tracy radio watch. And the irony of it is that now Apple Watches exist and I refuse to wear one. But the Dick Tracy radio watch, all it was AM, FM. No, I think it was just FM radio. And you just plugged headphones into it. And that shit, I wore that fucker everywhere. I was so proud of it. I went to school showing it off and stuff. And I don't remember whatever happened to it, but I do remember, like you said, Big D, the day that thing arrived, and it was worth every clipped out box code off of every, I think it was cereal boxes that I got that one off of. It was badass.
Yeah. I feel like you would wear the Dick Tracy watch now before you would wear an Apple Watch.
Yeah, my newest pride and joy. Actually, I just bought. They reissued the Timex Marlin, so I have a windy watch now. Raj, I'm fucking more old timey than Big D.
Are you as old timey as Lane's mother here?
Oh my god, I love her. So guys, a theme that I've noticed when we watch these 80s movies and even on TV shows is these guys who just insult their wives' domestic capabilities, right? Particularly their cooking. And I forgot to point this out during Lethal Weapon, but Murtaugh is a fucking asshole to his poor wife. She's cooking for their whole family, plus the neighborhood kids, plus Riggs, and they're just like, ha ha ha, she's a terrible cook, blah, blah, blah. Well, this movie kind of does the same thing, but it's not so bad. Jenny Meyer, Lane's mom, she's a terrible cook. There's like slimy food. There's food with tentacles. There's stuff with raisins in it. And it looks disgusting. But this woman is trying the best she can. She's reading home journals. She's trying to come up with new recipes, trying to make bacon the way his dad likes it. And she's sweet and she's sort of vapid and she might be a furry based on her Christmas gift, but she is so full of love and she's portrayed with so much joy that, the movie's not trying to be mean to her. You can like overlook the bad cooking jokes because she's like the sweetest person in the movie. And there's that great scene where Lane's trying to hang himself and she like slams the door open and she's just vacuuming. It's just, I don't know. I love this character. It's like Big D said, these little characters are what makes this movie.
When Lane comes home and he's depressed and his mother says, how you doing? He's like, Beth broke up with me. Oh, that's sweet. That's great. Like the mother's just out there. There is in the outtakes, it's like, I think an extra on the Blu-ray where Lane makes a comment about his mom. They got her back from the cult, but she's still not 100% right. So there is some history of the mother that we don't get to see, that she was traumatized, but she's trying so hard. When you see her in the back cooking, and it's like a giant octopus, like the Goonies lagoon monster is trying to get out of the pot. That shit is cute. It's funny.
The added context of the cult would have made it better. I think it would have explained things a little bit better. Because again, I can give you leeway for the overzealous paperboy. I get that. I get that there's an element of surrealism to the movie. But if you add a little bit of context where the mom is just like, she's been conditioned as part of this cult, I think it's great.
Yeah, but you talk about Johnny the fucking paperboy. It's one of the most memorable parts of the movie. For me, it's one of my least favorite. I could have done without it. Because fuck Johnny, honestly, fuck him. He's got some balls knocking on the door being like, where's my $2? Bitch, you broke every damn window in the garage except for one. You're lucky I don't come after you. I would have rather seen Al go down the street and take his belt off and give it to him, because this kid, he's got some balls chasing him around the park with his paperboy posse. Fix those damn garage doors and then I'll give you your $2. I would have thrashed that kid with a belt.
Oh, I'm sorry. The movie didn't have enough child abuse for you. Lane drives through a car wash and poor Johnny's up there on the roof of the car like, I can't swim. Oh, no. He flies off the side of a fucking mountain. He's just trying to get paid. And what I imagine is there's probably some sort of a paperboy master who's coming after him. He's beating Johnny. Johnny's just trying to get the money. So he's got like a paperboy pimp. He's got to pay up. But, while we're on the topic of these side characters, Raj, you asked a very good question about these Korean drag racers, and one of which who talks like Howard Cosell, and why they're Japanese actors. It's a big mess. But basically what happened was they hired 2 actors to play Koreans. The actors were Japanese American. One of the guys, Yuji Okamoto, you might actually recognize as Cho Zen from Karate Kid 2. And he's a big fucker. He's like 6 feet tall. He was also Fenton in Real Genius. And this poor guy took this role so seriously that he sat down. He's a 3rd generation Japanese American. He sits down, he studies Korean accents. Then he watches Wide World of Sports and learns how to talk like Howard Cosell. Then he puts that together and perfects the accent of a Korean who learned to speak English as Howard Cosell. He recorded all of that. And the production team of Better Off Dead were like, oh no, audiences will never understand this accent. So they'll go to Rich Little, the man of 1,000 voices, and he dubs over every single line that Yuji Okamoto spoke.
Oh, I really feel bad for that because, Rich Little's like the worst.
Yeah, Rich Little used to go on Carson, and he would just do voices, and that was entertainment back then, you know? That's why we don't do a 70s movies podcast or a 70s TV podcast, because we'd just be like, fuck Rich Little. But anyway, the only part that makes this somewhat funny is when you watch scenes like in the end scene when Lane is triumphant, spoiler alert, and he goes up to interview him, you can see that it's still dubbed over. So his mouth doesn't match any of the audio coming out of the mic. And I always thought that was intentional. I didn't realize that they fucked this poor guy over. And he's actually he's a really good actor who, yeah, man, he was really trying.
Yeah, I always thought that was a joke, but no. That's really sad. Fuck Rich Little. Seriously. Well, Lane cannot get past Beth's rejection and decides that death is the only way out of his misery. He makes several half-hearted attempts at suicide, which all comically fail. With the help of his best friend Charles, Lane tries to ski the K-12, the highest peak in town, in hopes of getting Beth back, but wipes out. Lane is further embarrassed when he gets fired from his humiliating fast food job at Pig Burgers in front of Roy and Beth, who are there on a date. And to top it all, he increasingly begins to suffer from neurotic hallucinations owing to the mounting frustrations in his life.
So practically every teen comedy has a scene in the high school where they're sitting in the class and the kids are bored and they're not learning anything, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And I love that Better Off Dead, they subvert our expectations. When we get inside the class, instead of the kids being typical disconnected students who don't give a shit, these students are hanging on every word from the geometry teacher, Mr. Kerber. Everyone in the class, except for Lane, has these huge reports. When the bell rings, they're all depressed that the class is going to end. And he says, oh, it's okay, everybody. Make sure you memorize between pages 39 to 110. And they cheer and they all run out of there in their merry ways. It was great. It wasn't what you expected. And then when Lane thinks he's going to get reprimanded for drawing that big fat guy with the sign that says baby in here, instead, Mr. Kerbers is the first one to drop to Lane. Hey, I heard you broke up. Is it okay if I go after Beth?
Whoa, it's not a big fat guy. That's a pregnant Beth he drew because the condom broke.
Yeah, he's daydreaming about getting her knocked up.
Yeah, he says, that thing I put on, well, it broke. And so he was having a daydream, a nightmare about getting her pregnant.
Yeah, that's
so he drew on the board, baby. That's Beth. That's why she's horrified when she's standing there.
Oh, I thought it was Mr. Kerber. It's like some fat bald dude. No, that makes sense.
No. Yeah. I love how you're just now understanding the movie.
Yeah, they're up there side by side. Beth looks over and realizes that he drew about the broken condom on the board in front of everybody in class.
Okay,
but Mr. Kerber is actually played by Vincent Schiavelli, who died, sadly, I believe, in 2005. But he also was in Fast Times in 82 and gave me fucking nightmares. Did you guys remember Ghost? The spook, the haunting on the subway when Patrick Swayze gets on the subway.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's him. And
That's
he
him.
gave me nightmares for years as a child. Every time I'd fall asleep, he'd be there. So great actor. So sad that he's gone, but man, he freaked me out.
But I want to talk about the crux of the movie here is that Lane, he's brokenhearted. So he's going to, any good comedy in the 80s had to have suicide attempts in the background. But Lane tries to kill himself 4 times. Twice, he talks himself out of it, and twice, fate intervenes. So I want to know, I don't even have to ask you, Roger, because I'm sure you were suicidal after that big time breakup over 30 years ago?
Oh, I'm still suicidal to this day.
So I want to ask you, Gene, has there ever been something in your life that you've actually seriously contemplated suicide? And if so, what do you think is the best and worst way to do it?
First of all, I love that Roger says in the middle of your sentence, I'm contemplating suicide to this day. And you're like, so anyway, Gene, let me ask you the question. To answer your question, Big D, I happen to know way too much about suicide. Not that I've ever contemplated it, but it is something that I have studied in college. I have friends who have survived suicide attempts. And from what I understand, the most effective way to kill yourself, which you should never do, anyone who's listening, we love you. Do not kill yourself. Don't even think about it. We're here. You can write us. We'll write back. Firearms are by far the most reliable method. And drugs are pretty much the least reliable. If you try to kill yourself with pills, chances are it is not going to work. Cutting is right down there with pills, actually. Not that it's not a surefire way to kill yourself, but most people just don't do it properly. And also it takes a while to bleed out. But the most disturbing fact that I found out, Big D, is that jumping only works about a third of the time.
Yeah.
So 2/3 of people who jump don't end up dead. And that's got to be excruciatingly painful.
Yeah, because you overestimate the height that you would kill you. So my rules for suicide, if I was ever going to do it, was you can't have something where there's a time span in between you making the decision and doing the action. So pills would be bad because say I took a whole bottle of pills and then like an hour later, I'm like, fuck, what did I do? I want to get them out. It might be too late and then you regret it. Also, the no guarantees. Jumping off of anything. You think your life sucks and you're depressed? Try it as a paraplegic. That'll give you a new appreciation for life. You'd be like, fuck, I wish I was just that broken-hearted Lane Meyer in high school where the biggest concern of my life was Beth breaking up with me. But I don't understand how people can actually do it. If I ever got to that point, I've thought about before, I would just take 10 grand out of the bank, buy a motorcycle, and just start driving west. And hopefully at some point find myself and reevaluate the situation. Because guys, death is permanent. Don't do anything rash.
You know, if you made it all the way to Scottsdale, Arizona, we could start a motorcycle gang. Leave this podcast life behind, man. We just, all of us just ride on to Alaska, work on a fishing boat.
Yeah.
A fishing boat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Actually sounds nice.
But, speaking of suicide attempts, though, Savage Steve, who wrote this movie, actually took some parts of his own life into it. So he had a journal of his mishaps. And according to an interview with him, he said that the hanging scene, he actually tried to do this himself. He went in the garage and he took an extension cord and connected it to a pipe. And he stood on a garbage can. And it turned out that it was a plastic garbage can. And so his weight crushed through it. He fell, the pipe broke. It's spraying water on him. He's like drowning inside of a garbage can. And his mom comes in and just starts yelling at him for breaking the pipe and getting water everywhere. And that actually made its way into the movie as Lane in the vacuum scene.
Usually I love when a writer-director has ownership of his film and can really bring his vision to life. But I can't help thinking if Savage Steve was an amateur here, because in the hands of maybe a more gifted filmmaker or directors like the Zuckers in the 80s with Top Secret and the Airplane movies, or maybe this would be better off as a cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only movie that's better as a cartoon was Transformers. Like, I think everything else I'd rather have the movie version. But, it's no secret that I hate cartoons. And like I said, the movie's opening cartoon scene was a pretty lame gimmick. And then when Lane's like talking to his cartoon drawings in the lunchroom, I'm like, oh God, like, can they just cut these parts of the movie? And so I started thinking, what is Savage Steve trying to do with these hallucinations? And I realized they add a very important element to the movie. Well executed or not, these daydreams help us sympathize with Lane and understand him better. Because without them, he might as well be Ferris Bueller, right? Like Ferris Bueller, the reason why I didn't like Ferris as a character is he's taking advantage of everyone around him. But Lane is just a guy with an overactive imagination. And then these mounting failures make him go a little crazy.
Well, Lane gradually gets to know a new girl, a French foreign exchange student named Monique, who has a crush on him. She's staying with Lane's overbearing neighbor, Mrs. Smith, who continually tries to force Monique into being a girlfriend for her socially awkward son, Ricky. The pair are so annoying that Monique pretends she cannot speak English, and Monique, a Dodgers fan, turns out to be an excellent auto mechanic and skier who helps Lane fix his Camaro and tries to build his confidence.
So now I'm surprised we've gotten this far into the podcast without talking about Ricky. So now Ricky, the neighbor, the Monique-obsessed, mother-loving, crocheting neighbor and classmate of Lane, he has to be the creepiest nerd of all time. He's a deviant. He's a groper. His mother has essentially brought in a foreign exchange student from another country to offer up to her son for his twisted sexual desires. There's no other way to describe this arrangement than sexual slavery. Monique is helpless. She's isolated. She doesn't have the resource to get out until Lane enters the picture, and she's expected to serve Ricky's dark desires. Even when they're meeting with the Meyers, she's bragging about it. Well, we got a romance brewing over here, you know, the international language. Ricky is always sliding his hand on her thigh. He's pulling her around. This is a really weird scene, and Ricky is a dark character. If he didn't find love, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie, he would have ended up killing somebody, having some sex torture chamber. He was a dark dude.
I hate that you're right about this because Ricky and his mom have always been the funniest moments of the movie for me. You know, the line, I'm sorry, your mom blew up, or when his mom is doing the Christmas with Monique's face. But now, I mean, I can't argue with you. The fact is that she's in a horrible position. She might not even like Lane, other than the fact that he's like the American that's going to save her, right? Nobody else seems to care or seems to be helping her. But again, I hate that I laugh at these scenes, but one of my favorite moments of any movie ever is the scene at the dance when a lot of people miss this because it's in the background, but Ricky is rushing out of the dance to go get Monique away from Lane as they're talking kind of out in the yard. And he's got this yellow balloon and it gets out of his hand and he turns around and makes this like half-hearted attempt to defy gravity to catch it. It's like this sad fat man jump. And then he keeps going. And I'm like, I don't know if that was ad-libbed, but it is the most perfect 3 seconds of cinema I've ever seen.
Yeah, Ricky is totally a big D in high school. Like I could see him doing this. I could see him going to the school dance, trying to dance with a girl forcibly.
No.
And then he like
forcibly.
And then all these they like do the circle. White people love the circle where you get another white person in the middle and watch them dance. What was going on there? Did Ricky like have a heart attack? Did he pass out? What happened there?
I was wishing that Chris Farley and Tommy Boy was more Ricky. Ricky is subdued. When he kicks open the doors to the dance and the fog comes in and he just stands there and he starts tapping his foot and he's twisting it. He gets out there. He can dance a bit. I liked Ricky up until that point until you found out what he was doing to poor Monique. But that was not me, Roger. I may have been the fat kid in high school, but I was never that nervous around people. I was the same person I am now, just a little less confident, but please, no, this was not me.
Big D, you pointed out that we didn't get to Ricky until this point in the movie. And I think it's because the movie practices a perfect formula for an 80s comedy. It delivers everything at just the right time in the right order. And I just returned from New Orleans, as Raj mentioned, and I went there for Gunnar Gras, which is like a gathering of all the Arsenal fans in the U.S., but also Crew de Vue, which is really the first big parade of the Mardi Gras season, started up. So I went out there, and as one does while in New Orleans, I had to stop in a Preservation Hall, one of my favorite music venues, and they do this fantastic show called If This Hall Could Speak. Where they like tell you about the history of Preservation Hall. But one of the things they also do is like explain to the novice jazz listener what the hell is even going on with jazz. And so at this particular show, I got to see the legendary Lester Calise and Kevin Lewis, and the pianist Ricky Monet was explaining how like jazz comes together according to a blueprint, right? What each person's job is and how it's basically just straight improvisation, taking cues from each other. And once I understood that blueprint, suddenly every jazz concert I went to after that, and I went to a lot this week, the improvisation, the creativity made so much more sense. And I feel like Better Off Dead, the ineffable part of it that we can't seem to encapsulate in mere words is that it is the blueprint for 80s movies. Everything that is in an 80s movie that makes an 80s movie is in this movie, and it's outlined so much more clearly. You've got the quirky and flawed protagonist in Lane. You got the ugly duckling girl in Monique. that amazing car that needs a montage to get it to run. You got the nerdy friend in Charles. There's the bully. There's the dance. There's the race. There's that weird but loving family, the oddball teacher. This isn't the first 80s high school movie, but I think it might be the most complete. All the pieces are there, and it's constructed so well. And they keep bringing it in cycles. And again, I think Ricky is just the icing on the cake. And then his mom is maybe the cherry on top of that.
So you talk about the car needing a montage to, get it up and running again. When you're a kid, you think you've got everything figured out. You think you know how the world works. I can remember trying to convince my father to let me buy this rusted out 1969 Camaro convertible. And in New York, the road salt, the quarter panels were gone. The roof with the fabric was terrible. And my father, thankfully convinced me not to do it, or this thing would have sat in my driveway the same way. But I, at that time, thought, man, this is going to be a sweet car. I could picture myself driving into school, the top down. This will help me get a girlfriend. It didn't.
Little speed wagon going.
No, it didn't.
You got a pack of Camel Lights rolled up in your left sleeve.
My sleeve.
Worked for me.
Hoping to find that girlfriend.
Yeah,
I don't know if this movie, because again, there's things in your life that you look back and you're like, well, did this influence who I eventually became? This might have been my first entry into foreign women and realizing that foreign women truly are the best. This made me long for my days living in Florida, dating exotic women. And Kelly's going to kill me for saying this, but foreign women definitely are the best. I love dating first generation women who come here to the States. Like Big D.
Wow.
I do. I love it. I don't know. It's crazy. But like, do you guys feel the same? Like I dated Ecuadorians, Brazilians, Slovak, Colombian. Oh, they're fantastic. They're wonderful.
No,
they treat their men better. Like they're overall fantastic. They got a little bit of an accent. They know how to do random things that you're like, I didn't know you could do that. This is great. Where'd you learn that skill?
So I'm guessing you've never dated a Persian woman.
I want to date a Persian woman.
No,
100%.
you don't.
100%. That's next on the list.
Listen, I'm surrounded by them, and the most exotic woman I've ever dated is from like Michigan.
I didn't go out seeking someone who was different, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad that I didn't marry some other just regular white chick, because it would have been boring. I think when she brings her culture, her background, her upbringing, her traditions, I bring mine, it becomes this creative mix. I don't think anyone should marry exactly what they are. Yeah. Everyone should go out there and find somebody, whether it doesn't have to be ethnicity, race, somebody who is so very different from you that you create something different when the two you come together.
I just want to point out that Big D's entire like United Colors of Benetton world, where he's like, I've wanted to find someone so different from myself. When we come together, we make something so beautiful and unique, like the whitest baby you have ever seen. Your genes disagree with you,
true.
Big D. Yeah. They're like, all right, we're going to go in there. We're going to knock all the Brazilianness out of this child.
Yes.
Hopefully she can at least dance.
Yeah. We're going to put her in hip hop, but yeah, you're 100% true. Don't judge a book by its cover. My wife's grandfather was black and my parents were Swedish. My daughter is as white as they come, to the point where people who see my wife and Emma say, "Oh, are you the nanny?" She loves that.
Oh, I bet she enjoys that. Yeah, I was going to say
that
must be great for you, both of you.
Anyway, getting back to the movie. Raj, I know you absolutely hate, and you know the term, I always forget it, when they dub the audio back over the film, so you get like
ADR.
What is it called?
ADR.
ADR. Yes, ADR. Raj, I was imagining you watching this movie and the ADR just driving you up the fucking wall, because there is so much audio added to the footage that I sometimes felt like someone was making a parody movie, like it was MST3K. And they were just dubbing the audio over somebody else's movie and goofing on it. From the pre-recorded $2 to literal loops of women laughing. And for the most part, it really bothered me. But there's one scene where it's fucking hilarious. And it's when the basketball team comes into the lunchroom And it's like a bunch of really tall dudes, and all you hear is like grunting, and then one guy's just like, rah, 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 defense. It's like, and it doesn't match at all. You'd imagine there are four guys that, recording audio in a studio somewhere who've never even seen the movie, just got a script from a Savage Steve that said grumble and say defense.
All those guys look like they were 35 as well. It was very uncomfortable because she's like, she's dating the entire basketball team.
Yep.
Well, when Roy insults Monique, Lane challenges him to a ski race down the K-12 with the winner to be the captain of the ski team. Monique helps Lane prepare for the race, which he ultimately wins despite losing a ski and being pursued by Johnny. Beth rushes to embrace Lane at the finish line, but he rejects her, and after besting Ricky in a ski pole sword fight, drives off with Monique in his Camaro. Lane and Monique are last seen kissing on the home plate at Dodger Stadium, with Johnny bicycling towards them, while a mid-credit scene Badger launches a homemade space shuttle from his room through the roof of the house. End movie.
So the final climax, I have mixed emotions on it. At first, I thought this final sequence was probably the weakest part of Better Off Dead. The whole montage of him skiing and, him going skiing with Monique and all of a sudden becoming this world-class skier. And then as I'm rethinking it, I actually think it was a stroke of genius. Lane is an overthinker. That's one of his problems. He's overthinking the K-12. Just go straight. If you find something in your way, turn. Only when he loses the ski and he's chased by Johnny does he forget about the K-12, forget about skiing. So he goes down the hill, and instead of tumbling on the skis, the one ski and the boot actually allow him to go down the sheer face without flipping over. So with his mind not on it, it made sense that he could all of a sudden ski this. So I was okay with it. I thought it was a good way to explain it. But then we get one of the best scenes of the movie when Ricky again, slithers out of the family car to come reclaim Monique to take her down to the dungeon. I wish they just didn't give Ricky a love interest at the end. I don't think he deserved that because that girl's ended up dead somewhere too.
Yeah, that bothered me too, Big D. It was like they had to match up Ricky with another nerd, but a nerd that's not nearly as bad as he is. And that confused me because the end of this movie was like a reverse Breakfast Club. So in the Breakfast Club, you have all these different cliques and they're forced to come together, the jock and the troubled girl and the bad boy, and the prep girl, like they all had to come together. In Better Off Dead, it seems to be headed in the direction of saying, look, the underdogs are the good guys, and we want them to triumph over the popular kids. But then Ricky's like another level of unpopular, and he's like unfit for anything other than another nerd. But she seemed nice, though. It's not that Ricky's a nerd, right? It's that he's fucking awful. And speaking of the K-12, I want to point out a theory. I like Big D's theory that Lane just overthinks things, and if he can get out of his own head, he could ride the K-12. I've got a competing theory that the K-12 is not that hard to ski because Johnny's doing it on a bicycle. The only reason he flies off the side is because Roy like kind of shoves him off. Monique, it's her first run on this mountain, and she just does it fine. To her credit, though,
why?
Monique is an underage. Why?
Because
she's a foreign woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, but she is easily the best skier in the movie. She's the best mechanic. She's the best pitcher. I don't know that Lane deserves her, quite honestly. And I think that I'd love to see her emerge as the true hero of this movie. She should have done. She should have beaten Ricky in the sword fight. Put Lane on her shoulder.
Yes,
torn off in the Camaro. That would have been a good ending.
That would have been a cool ending. I agree. I agree with you. Well, now it's time of the podcast where we break out our Shat meters and give you our wipe scores. If you've never listened to the podcast before, 0 wipes is a perfect movie and 5 wipes is a terrible movie. We'll start with you, Big D. How many wipes do you give Better Off Dead?
I can honestly say I don't think my score will be based simply on my fond memories of this movie. I came into it being willing to tear it apart, but I think it is a nearly perfect teen comedy from the 80s. I think it's a half-white movie. I think the characters, they're awkwardly real. Everybody knew a burnout stoner, the obnoxious yuppie, the bully, or like Lane, the hopeless dreamer. And watching it now, I'm struck by how innocent Better Off Dead really was. In most of the 80s teen movies, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High or Porky's, Revenge of the Nerds, they fell into the genre where they were trying to outdo each other, being raunchy and with nudity and profanity. That's not the case with Better Off Dead. The movie barely has any curses. The relationship between the characters is particularly innocent. Even though Better Off Dead is really tame, it stands out. I think there's something about Lane that just captures what it was like to be a depressed and lonely kid in high school. When he's daydreaming, we can all sympathize with it. And I think they do a great job of weaving in that high school experience. This is a true classic. It was enjoyable, memorable. It's innocent, and this movie would never be made today. And it is nearly perfect for what it is.
How about you, Gene? How many wipes do you give Better Off Dead?
Raj, I have a lot of love for Better Off Dead, and I try to be very objective with it, which was difficult to do. It brings back a lot of memories. There are individual moments of this movie that are side-splittingly funny. Again, a lot of stuff with Ricky and his mom, or the drag racing Koreans. Like it hits on all the high notes perfectly. But I think one good measure of a film's quality is my confidence that I could watch it with a stranger and not be worried that he or she wouldn't think it was as funny as I think it is. And I think Better Off Dead has some pretty elementary parts, like Johnny with the $2, just predictable stuff that we forgive because it's so charming in other spots. But I think it's just short of being perfectly polished. Again, Savage Steve before this had just done like a short film that's really got him some notoriety. Henry Winkler had a big part in getting this movie made. And I don't think it's as perfect as it could be. So I'm left in a weird spot where if somebody asked me, do you like Better Off Dead? I'd say, yeah, it's one of my top like 20 favorite movies. But if somebody said, hey, as a co-host of Shat The Movies, being an objective reviewer who's done 140 something movies, is this a perfect movie? I got to say no. And I can't give it a score cleaner than one wipe.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gene. It's better than an average movie for sure. And John Cusack is great, but it feels really outdated. I dig the weirdness of the film, but I'm not sure if a lot of the references today would still make kids laugh. You talk about Big D. You pointed out how there's subversion of the expectations where it kind of turns. It is a teen movie. It has all the beats there, like you said, Gene, but then in certain aspects where, for instance, there's that classroom scene. All the kids are excited about homework and excited and pulling up. Like those are clever, but I just don't think Savage Steve was that good of a director to really hit the beats that you needed from a directorial perspective that made me chuckle. I didn't laugh once throughout this movie. And again, maybe it's because I've been stressed out. Are you
serious?
Yeah, I didn't. I did not.
You're heartless.
I know.
You realize there's something wrong with you.
Yes.
You don't see the heart in E.T.
No.
You didn't laugh. You're dead inside.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I want to give you a hug. Come over.
Well, all right. Let's do this. Maybe it reminded me of those deep, dark places I went shortly after Melissa Zaitchik, crushed my heart. And then I was reminded of the last girlfriend that broke my heart. And because I recently saw her Instagram and she's got a nice, I showed the picture to Big D and he's like, ooh, he's got some big dick energy.
Huge big dick energy. You can see it.
He's got huge big dick energy.
Yeah.
God, you hate to see that. Whatever. So if we were to add up our scores, Kelly, this is purely for the podcast. I'm totally joking. If we were to add up our scores 2, 1, and 0.5 and then divide by 3, that gives you our overall Shat score. Gene, how many wipes does Shat the Movies give Better Off Dead?
Raj, the average score between our 3 for Better Off Dead is 1.16 repeating wipes.
And Big D, if you were to take that score, the 1.16 repeated, and compare it to all the movies we've done here at Shat the Movies, where does it rank in the pantheon of Shat?
That now makes Better Off Dead the number 25 movie out of our top 145. It is slightly better than Toy Story, The Terminator, and Seven, and it is slightly worse than E.T., The Empire Strikes Back, Conan the Barbarian, and Back to the Future 2.
No,
it's a top 20 movie. It's a top 25 movie.
Toy Story is better than this. Toy Story is better than this.
No. Of all those, I think we're going to go with Terminator, not Toy Story.
Terminator is better than this too. Yeah, Toy Story. From a comedy, right?
And again, we're talking fractions of a wipe.
Yeah.
we're talking about such minor differences now.
I got to tell you, I'm excited to go to France in a few weeks and meet my my Monique.
Wow.
It's just for the podcast, Kelly. Just for the podcast.
It's for the podcast.
Jesus.
Well, Big D, now it's time for the podcast where we break out our shout outs and tell you the movie we're doing next. Gene, what's a shout out?
Raj, shout out is our way of saying thank you for visiting our website, shatthemovies.com, where you can see the back catalog of movies that we've already done, vote for movies to come, and help us out by going to shatthemovies/support to pledge your hard-earned dollars to support this podcast, keep the lights on, keep us going. You can also go to shatthemovies/shoutouts and get your name read on the podcast. This week's shoutouts go to Puss Killer, off to a great start. I always need to rip a huge line of Coke to be able to get through one of these podcasts. And that comes from Tony Montana's long lost son at hotmail.com. Glad you're still using Hotmail, dude.
Right.
Also, Gil B. Grape, also a Scottsdale resident. Love you guys. Ollie from Cramlington, UK. White privilege doesn't exist from that guy 5 at hotmail.com. Surprise. Rob in the OC. Al Pacino is hot as fuck, guys. Come on. And that email address is you're wrong at gmail.com. So
it's a great email address.
Go back and watch Heat for fuck's sake. It's disgusting. And finally, Phoebe Cook from the UK. Again, if you'd like to hear your name on the podcast, just go to shatthemovies.com/shoutout and put your name in there. We'll get it on the pod next week.
Big D, speaking of that, what is the next movie we'll be doing on Shat the Movies?
Well, probably, what was it now? About a year? When did we go to the medieval times?
It was your birthday.
Oh, thank you. My memory's starting to go, right. So it was August. Okay, great. So in August, we had a category Best of Jim Carrey, and the winner came up and we were set to do it. And I said, well, if we're going to go to medieval times, we have to do the Cable Guy. So that meant we pushed this winner down. So next week we will be doing a voting category, one of our classics. And it was the Best of Jim Carrey, and up for vote was Liar Liar, The Mask, The Truman Show, Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, and The Cable Guy. So stay to the end to listen to the trailer to see what we're doing next. But we had 3,600 votes at the point we took this down back in August. So it was a highly contested category and much closer than people would have expected. But it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, excited for this one. Again, thank you, John E. from Ithaca, New York, for commissioning this week's episode of Better Off Dead. I do so we did like 2 Dead movies back to back. We did Drop Dead Fred and now Better Off Dead. Anyway, that concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media, share with a friend. We're everywhere, including Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Just follow the handle at Shat the Movies. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search for Shat the Movies. Our website where you can vote on upcoming films and support the podcast is shatthemovies.com. You can also email us your suggestions at hosts@shatthemovies.com. We're everywhere. Fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Spotify. You can subscribe via iTunes. And if you do, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That does help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Watchmen. Don't forget Westworld coming back season 3, March 15th. Start your rewatch now. You can also check out all of our past episodes at shatontv.com. On behalf of my co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Gene, How to Pick Up Trashy Women Lions, I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie review. Thank you so much for listening. Take care, good night, and good luck.
What are we gonna do? I got an idea. Go faster!
Dumb, a person lacking mental power.
What's her last name? I'll look it up. Starts with an S. Slappy. No. Swappy. Maybe it's on the briefcase. Look on the... Oh, yeah! It's right here. Samsonite. I was way off.
Idiot, an adult mentally inferior to a child of 3.
Skis, huh?
That's right.
The yours?
Uh-huh.
Both of them?
Yeah.
Cool.
Stupid, a person below normal intelligence.
Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
If they each had half a brain, they'd still only have half a brain.
Oh, look, Frost. Hold on.
Jim Carrey,
Hold that plane! Sir, you can't go in there. It's okay. I'm the limo driver.
Jeff Daniels,
Oh, geez, look at the butt on that. Yeah. He must work out.
Dumb and Dumber. For these guys, every day is a no-brainer.